Hello, and welcome back to Strange Stories with the Seeker and the Skeptic. Today we are talking with Tywanah Evette. Tywanah is a fifth generation intuitive healer, metaphysical practitioner, and psychic medium. Tywanah had a lot of spiritual experiences early on in her life, but her psychic gifts were shut down because of the beliefs and prejudices of others. Tywanah had to go through some serious darkness to find her way to the light. She now shares her experiences with healing trauma to help others on their journey. We'd like to give a trigger warning for this episode. Tywanah is going to talk about a suicide attempt and experiencing different forms of abuse throughout her life. While this is an incredible and very valuable conversation, listener discretion is advised. Hello, Tywanah, and thank you for being here today. We're so happy to have
Hello.
you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that you are a fifth generational intuitive healer. So tell us about like your family lineage with this when it comes to spiritual gifts and healing.
My family lineage when it comes to spiritual gifts and healing, my mother knew she was psychic. She was very aware of her gifts, but lived at a time where it was frowned upon. And of course, my grandmothers before my mother definitely lived at times where, you don't speak about it, full Christianity, that type of thing. And so my mother knew I was psychic when I was 2 years old. And I was crawling, she says I was crawling around the living room table, and I started giggling and I started saying, "Pop up, you can't catch me." A few minutes later, the phone rang. That was the call that my grandfather had transitioned.
Oh, wow.
So she knew when I was a baby that I had this gift. But when I was 10, she remarried my biological father, who was a deacon in the church. So it was told to zip it, you know, leave this alone. We're not going down this road. We're just going to act like everything's okay. And so, following into that, I wound up marrying two people who were very religious, but I never felt wanted or welcomed, if that makes sense, in that space. So I had a huge event happen March 19th of 2022. I was trying to take my own life. I had felt like I failed God, like I failed my children, like I just wasn't worth anything. And that was the real beginning of my spiritual awakening. I remember going into the void, and I remember my mother and my stepfather being there. And I remember my mother saying, she put her hands like on my chest and she said, "No, this is where your purpose begins. It's not time." And she pushed me. And then I remember waking up, of course, in the hospital. Um, so since then, her voice is undeniably loud as she, is on the forefront of my spirit team. Um, she wakes me up if she wants to talk. It's crazy, but it's a lot of fun. But in that, she started just mentioning names, and I'm like, "Who are these people?" I just started hearing names, and she's like, "You've got this computer, look it up. Who these people are." Because no one in, like, my one sister that I speak with, she's like, "I don't know who these people are." So sat down one day, went on Ancestry and Family Search, and the name that I heard was my grandmother 4 generations back.
Oh, wow.
Um, they had a photo of her tombstone on Ancestry, and that's how she started, like, introducing new, not, they weren't new to me, but they were new to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, people on my spirit team and things like that. So through her and through them and their communication, that's how I learned that they all had the gift, but they were waiting on me
Mm-hmm.
because I'm the only one who can use it now.
Absolutely. I'm sorry that you got to that place, but it also sounds like that's the place that helped you get to your transformation.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I feel bad for how desperate I felt.
Hmm.
And it's almost like watching from a third person
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like I feel bad for her. She was hurting so bad,
Yeah.
but um wouldn't trade this experience for the world.
Yeah.
I
Do
wouldn't.
you see it almost as like a rebirth?
It was definitely a rebirth.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pain. There was a lot of people leaving my life. Um, you know, I live what most people would think is a lonely life, but I love my own company, so it's not lonely. Um, so that part was a challenge,
Hmm.
as people started to fall away. But by the end, by the time I lost my last best friend, um, I could recognize the pattern in how me and my friends were bonded over trauma. We weren't bonded over healthy things.
Hmm.
So as I healed this trauma, that I survived as a child, and, what I felt in those desperate moments, we no longer fit. So they had to fall away. We're not even on the same energetic wavelength at that
Yeah.
point. So, it's hard some days, but most days, I get up, I have a smile on my face, and I'm ready to, help whoever I can.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I know it that can be very difficult when you're healing
Hmm.
and the people who you've surrounded yourself with just like you said, they're not on the same energetic wavelength anymore. And so, and I'm an energy person, I believe like if our energies don't match, then you're out of my orbit. And there's
Exactly.
grief that happens with that, but it also you can see it from kind of that higher perspective of like they maybe were meant for me at a certain point in my life, but
Hmm.
that chapter is closed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The only relationships I don't see that way are my kids.
Hmm.
And they're adults, but they've asked for some space, and I give them that. Traumatized mom made a lot of mistakes.
Hmm.
So, but aside from my physical appearance, if they met me today, they wouldn't recognize me.
Oh wow.
So, I'm nowhere near the same person I was even a
Hmm.
year ago.
Yep.
Yeah, it's I think it's pretty normal for people to kind of fall away when you're in a situation where you're improving yourself. If they're not ready to improve themselves, it probably scares them. I think that's what happens with a lot of people is they see you making your life better and they're like, I am not in a place to process this, and they wander off. That's what's happened in my life for sure.
I
I've
never thought of it that way. That is such an interesting way of viewing it. I never thought of it that way. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all, you know, often we're mirrors for each other, right? And so if
Yes,
somebody's getting healthier, that's holding up a mirror of like, oh, maybe I'm not doing that work or I'm not ready for that work.
right.
So that could definitely make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
When you were a child, your dad and your mom got remarried.
Hmm.
He's a deacon in the church. Um, and there was kind of the message of like, shut it down. We don't talk about that anymore. Do you feel like your abilities kind of like went dormant, or do you feel like they were always there? You just didn't really kind of lean into them as much?
Um, to the naked eye, to the average person, it would look like they went dormant, but I always knew things and couldn't explain
Hmm.
how I knew them. And even my first husband, who was very heavy in the church, one day he comes home, he's like, I'm convinced you're psychic because you should not have known X, Y, and Z. Um, he was out cheating, and I called him and told him where he was.
Oh, wow.
And this is before,
Yeah.
Google and
Yeah.
phones being tracked and things like that.
Yeah.
I just knew. Um, so yeah, it kind of, to the outside world, it looked dormant, but I would see things, I would hear things, I just wouldn't react to them.
Hmm. And when you say you saw and heard things, it sounds like it was both like the intuitive knowing and messages, but was there some spiritual seeing and hearing as well, like
Oh,
people from the other
definitely,
side? Yeah.
definitely, definitely, especially once they realize you can see and hear them.
Okay.
I hate hospitals for that reason,
Sure.
because it's like, wait a minute, she can hear us, It's
Mhm.
like there's a little light on in the darkness, and they're like, wait a minute, she can hear us. Can you help me? And so I avoid hospitals as much as I possibly can, because
Mhm.
it's not a good experience at
Yeah.
all. At
Yeah.
all.
I can see that would be very overwhelming.
Oh my God. Yes,
Yeah.
it is. My sisters, the reason I moved back to DC, my sister's partner of 20 something years passed away suddenly. And they have they at the time, Hurricane Corso was 6 months old. And so when I moved back, of course, I can see her partner, around the house, and the dog is, of course, picking up on it.
Mhm.
He's just barking in a general direction. And I would always kind of just turn around or not react. Well, my sister wasn't home one day. She had gone into the office instead of working from home. And he said something, and I turned around and I was like, oh man. He goes, you can hear me. I knew you could hear me. And he gives me this message from my sister, and I'm like, can you just write it on a whiteboard or a piece of paper or something? Because she doesn't believe in this type of stuff.
Oh,
And why me? Why
yeah.
do I have to do this? Like, you know her. She's not woo woo like that. And I waited 9 months to deliver that message. I gave her that message in December of last year. And it was after I announced to the family I am a psychic. I do have these gifts. Mom had these gifts. You guys weren't aware of mom's gifts because she hid them from you. But, um, and this is how I'm going to operate from here on out. I'm going to be my authentic self, who I was created to be. And so we had to have conversations, because it's like, well, how do I deal with you from here on out? You deal with me with respect. That's it. That's all
Yeah.
I'm asking for. And so when her and I had that conversation, she had come over to my house, and I could hear his voice going, you got to give her the message. You got to give her the message. And I'm like, wait a minute, how are you even here? And I forgot I had one of his hoodies. And I'm like, okay, so that's how you're here. But, she's getting ready to leave, and I'm sitting there, and I've got my mother in one ear and him in the other ear. And I'm like, all right, I have to give you a message. I don't want to say any of this. I haven't wanted to say it since they told me, but this is what he said. And she's like, she turned around. You could tell she was getting teary eyed. So she turned around to try to avoid it. And she was like, what is he talking about? And I was like, I don't know. It's your boyfriend. Like, I'm just relaying the message. And when she got home, she sent me a message and said, thank you. Um, thank you for the message from Henry. Um, so I guess she put two and two together of, his
What it
cryptic
was.
message, because it was something I never would have known.
Hmm.
So yeah, she finally put two and two together with that cryptic message. But yeah, that's kind of how life operates now. It's weird.
Yeah. Has has your family, since you've told them, have they come around? Are they a little bit more accepting, or are they still kind of skeptical?
Well, because they learned two truths about me the end of last year. One, just how far the um sexual abuse went when I was under my father's care. And then they learned I'm a psychic, all in the same
Hmm.
sentence. So two of my siblings I have completely cut off. When my brother asked for proof of what I went through as a teenager, I told him it's in the New York City courthouse. I'll sign whatever you need. And never spoke to him again.
Hmm.
And my other sister, who blames me for the abuse that my father gave to her, and all she got was a beating. Um, I don't talk to her. My sisters, what's funny is my sisters on my father's from his previous marriage all love and accept me exactly as I am, and all supported me when everything happened when I was a teenager. So I still have some family.
I'm so
Plus my
glad.
soul family.
Yes.
They rock.
Absolutely. Yeah, it can be really difficult for people to look at those hard, ugly truths, and like Jonathan was saying, that might be one of those instances that they're just not ready to face.
And that's fine, but
Yeah,
I had to.
absolutely.
I had to.
Yeah, and I mean the courage it takes to be able to just be, this is me, this is my authentic self, and I'm not going to hide myself anymore, I think is beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's interesting to me where you're talking about speaking that message from your sister's partner. It
Mhm.
always seems like it's something that the person who it is intended to has to think about. It gives you kind of an idea of like the things that are important to us are a little different than the things that sometimes are important to that.
Very much so. Very much so. Anytime I've channeled or given a message to a friend or a family member, it's been that cryptic information that I would have no way of ever figuring out. Um, and I think the other side does that on purpose. It's so that people know that you're authentic, right? Because we've got the TikTok psychics now who, slide into your direct messages and, swear that somebody's ancestor gave them a message for you and you got to pay $500 for it. So I can see people's hesitation. But once the message comes and it clicks, I don't understand why you would hesitate after that. I don't get it.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to your experience with like your near death, you said that you were in a void, that
Yes.
loved ones were there. Is there anything else that you remember about that experience?
I remember because I actually did fall asleep between two trees. I left the house and went and laid down between two trees. And I remember being at the edge of a forest, again, the trees. And like I said, my stepdad, who my mother was with from the time I was like 3 until I was 10, who adored me, and my mother were right there. And, we had a conversation, and I'm like, I'm tired. I want to go with you guys. I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. This life is too hard. Why was I even created? I'm worth nothing. Um, my ex had me convinced that I was worth nothing.
Mhm.
And they just kept saying, no, your purpose begins now. Your purpose begins now. And of course, I didn't understand what that meant. And I didn't remember the exchange itself for a few months.
Oh, wow.
They kind of put like blinders over that
Mhm.
exchange. But even when I was in the hospital, I told my middle daughter, I went somewhere. I know I went somewhere. Like, I know that it didn't just happen the way it seems like it happened. I went somewhere, and your Nana was there. And, you know, of course they're like, Mom, you're just getting out the hospital, you're delusional, take your meds, whatever. Um, but I remember it clearly, and I just as she just pushed me here because she knew if I they were like at a threshold, and she knew if I came over that threshold I wasn't going to fight to come back.
Mhm.
So they were literally like blocking the threshold. But it was a forest, and they would not let me in.
Wow.
And she wasn't wrong. My purpose, that's when my purpose really began, because my purpose is to use my voice to inspire others, use my voice to help other women who have been traumatized, um, use my voice so that other people feel comfortable in their skin and in their calling and whatever it is they're gifted to do.
Mhm. What
So
did
it feels good.
I mean, it's amazing. And to be able to take that pain and to channel it into something positive where it's not only, you've gone on your own healing journey, but you're helping others on theirs is just, it's wonderful and what we need in this world for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. What after that point, what did your healing journey look like?
After that, it was very chaotic. Because here I am moving into my sister's home to help her heal and help the dog heal. And I'm still a mess in my head. I had only been released from the hospital 2 months prior, before I packed everything up and moved here. And that's when you realize that you're a healer, when you're literally filtering someone else's emotions through your body, even though you're not, your cup is empty. You don't really have anything to give. But that's really when I realized I am a healer, because I'd be able to calm her down or calm the dog down, even though inside I'm screaming. Um, a lot of therapy for a year. And then therapy became redundant to me at one point. I was just like, we just keep talking about the same thing in circles. Like I need something more. And therapy had its place. It helped me to realize that I was in a domestic abuse situation, a nonviolent domestic abuse situation. So after that, I started doing things like RTT hypnotherapy. I've had two major energy clearings, dark night of the soul meditations. I started using those modalities,
Mm-hmm.
and they became very instrumental in getting me to where I am today. My Akashic read was the final thing for me. It was when I had that Akashic reading and they said, "Well done, you have cleared your family's karma." I told my reader, there is not a person on this planet who could say anything to me about who I am after hearing that from the Emerald Tablets. Are you kidding me? No. And that's really kind of when I just took off.
Yeah.
It once you hear you've cleared your family's karma, and they gave me a choice as to which of my gifts I wanted to lean into. So,
And which did you choose?
the psychic and the healing, the
Okay.
psychic and intuitive healing,
Yeah.
for, especially for survivors of incest and domestic abuse.
Yep.
So that's where my heart is.
Yep. So I am a therapist, but I am what I call myself a holistic therapist because I'm a Reiki master. I work in the Akashic records, and I'll be honest, I hate traditional talk therapy. Like, and I know it has a place. Like, I absolutely know that sometimes people just need that space to just let me just get it off my chest. Let me
Right.
please hold this for me, and
Yes.
so that can be beneficial. But where the real true healing happens is when people can go inside of themselves with me. They can look at their wounded parts, they
Mm-hmm.
can hear those stories, and then they can release it energetically. That
Mm-hmm.
is when, and that's where my healings happened as well. Like everything that I do with my clients is something that I've done for myself or with other practitioners,
Mm-hmm.
so I can totally understand where you got to the point where you're like, I'm just talking in circles. Like this is not helping anymore. Like,
Exactly. It like I said, it has this place.
yeah, for
In the
sure.
beginning when I was lost and,
Yep.
didn't know which direction to go in, it definitely helped.
Yep.
But,
Gain some
year and a
clarity.
half in, I'm just like, well, I'm paying for nothing here.
Yeah.
Come on, I could, talk to my phone for all of this. I could be on TikTok scrolling.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, once Toth tells you that good job, well done,
Yeah.
but there's nothing any person on this earth can say to you after that. You
Yeah.
know, people have said things about me and I just laugh in their face now. Like, I don't care what you say. You are but a tiny human. Do you know what these people said? You know,
Yeah.
like that's exactly how I felt. It was like
Hmm.
after that, I felt so empowered
Yeah.
and I no longer want to like leave this earth before my time. Now I'm like, I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna help people. I'm gonna get through this. Even when, things that are terribly hard, like, missing my children on a day like today.
Yeah.
Um, I still want to get up and empower somebody and help and, tell somebody I know it's hard and there's going to be days that you're sitting and rocking and crying in your bathtub with the water running so nobody hears you, but they are so worth it when you get to the other side. It is there's oh God, the spirit realm is just full of wonders.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, I'm rambling,
No,
but I
you're
love,
not.
I love, love
Yeah.
spirit realm. It's just so majestic.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the spiritual realm is love, and so that's what you're tapping into is just this pool of beautiful love and light, and that
Yes.
you get to share that with other people.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And then to always have, my mom, she's always on my right side. She's always
Hmm.
inches from my body.
Yeah.
Um, After losing her, we lost her 25 years ago, April 8th. And she was 59. And we had some troubles around what happened to me as a child. Um, because she couldn't face it. But even before um, this year, my mother has come through numerous times to say sorry.
Hmm.
Um, she didn't have brain waves for 3 days before she passed, and that's when the hospital says, okay, there's not even a brain wave here.
Yeah.
And so I was in Atlanta. My sister calls me from here. She's like, they're pulling mom off tonight, and I walk over to my boss and I'm like, can I go sit in the conference room for a little bit? I need to calm down. They're not taking her off Saturday, they're taking her off tonight. And my boss goes, go in the conference room, I'll be right back. And she comes back, she goes, there's a limo outside waiting for you. Here's $200. Your ticket is at the Delta counter. Go.
Oh my goodness.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
They made it so I could say goodbye to her.
Yeah.
And I was still in my work clothes, so I'm like in a blazer and a dress and high-heeled shoes, and my heels literally went click, click, and my mother opened her eyes. She knew it was me. Just
Hmm.
two clicks,
Yep.
and I saw her eyes open. And she's like trying to move her hand, trying to get the tube out, and I'm holding her hands, and I'm like, no, mommy, it's okay, and I'm talking to her, and I'm like, you can't take that out right now, but I love you, I forgive you for everything. I was telling her that I had just had a baby that was 4 months old, and just talking to her, and she kept crying. She kept her gaze on me the whole time until the last minute. I still remember. And she held my hand. And I knew then that she was sorry.
Mhm.
I knew then that there was a part of her that was broken. But she's come through 3 or 4 times really strongly in the last 10 years. Um I only trust two psychics with my energy. And she's come through both of them saying she's sorry. And then in one of the sessions, she kind of placed her hands on my shoulders and said, I didn't use my psychic gifts, so I'm transferring them to you.
Oh.
So yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be able to hear her again, to feel her energy. Even though
Hmm.
she's not here physically, all I have to do is start talking and she's there. I tell her stay out of people's houses because she made it so that And I'm sorry I get emotional.
Oh no, that's okay.
The anniversary of her passing is April 8th. Her birthday is July 29th. And both of those days are typically very depressing for me. I go into a very, very deep depression. This year, she April 8th was the first meeting with my publisher.
Oh wow.
And the publisher kept saying, I knew you had to be part of this book. I just kept hearing somebody tell me you have to be part of this book. And I'm like, lady, stay out of people's houses, you know? But she said to me while I'm on Zoom with my publisher, I don't want you to cry on this day anymore. And then 2 weeks later, you know, I'm on the Need a Guest website, Facebook page, and there's a women's summit, so I apply for it. I don't know when it is. I just know it's in July. They didn't put the dates or anything. And I got accepted into the women's summit, and it starts July 29th, which is her
Oh my
birthday.
goodness.
Wow.
So she wants me to associate those days now with happy things.
Absolutely.
That was like the greatest gift she could have given me.
Yeah. Oh, I have chills. I mean,
I'm sorry.
no, don't sorry at all. It's absolutely beautiful, you know, that she is just guiding and leading from the other side and just making her presence known that she is still very much with you and supporting you. That's
She
beautiful.
is. She is. That was just it's too synchronistic to
Oh
not
yeah.
be of her.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Incredible. Tell us about this book.
It's called Divine Synchronicity, and it's an anthology book. Amongst some very writing amongst some very incredible women. Um, but part of the last 2.5 years of my story will be in that book. It's by Inspired Living Publishing, and it will be released October 29th.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
So
That's very
I'm
exciting.
so excited to be a published author in October. That's a dream that I've had since my first night in a group home.
hmm
So yeah, I'm really excited about it. And then I'm writing some other things which will open up some doors for more writing projects in the future.
Awesome.
Well, when that comes out, be sure to send us a link so we can push it out on our social media.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
definitely will.
Yeah.
Thank you so
We'll
much.
definitely be getting a copy.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, you're definitely going to get a copy. But yes, thank you so much. That would be wonderful.
Absolutely. So tell us about your brand is Black Butterfly Goddess, which I just think
Yes,
is absolutely beautiful. Tell
thank
us
you.
about some of the work that you're doing and some of the things that you offer through that work.
So, I started by offering Oracle and Tarot readings, you know, to people who were hurting, to get some guidance from the other side, where I'm the medium
Yeah.
between both worlds. Um, and as fate would have it, tarot readings drain me.
Oh,
So,
okay.
my birthday bestie, we met online 10, 12 years ago in a group, found out we have the same birthday. We've had similar lives. So, birthday bestie is an exceptional tarot reader. She will be taking over tarot in the next week. I still offer oracle readings, but the other two things that I'm offering, one is on my site already, is 15 traits to look for if you suspect the person you're dating is a covert narcissist. Um, and that's because when a therapist the other day got on TikTok and said, covert narcissists will have these 9, you know, symptoms, my ex checked 9 of 9.
hmm
So it's very dear to my heart. because I've been through both types of domestic violence, and I would rather relive the physical any day than the mental and the emotional. So I'm leaning into that. There's an ebook that'll be out in the next 45 days. There's a journal that'll be out in the next 30 days. And I'm going to begin offering one-to-one plus one-to-many mentorship, depending on, how the people, each client, some people might like to work in a group, some people might not like to. So one of my best friends is a coach. She's been a successful coach for a while. So she's going to help usher me into that mentorships and teaching space.
Beautiful.
That's awesome. It's interesting to me that you're delving into the narcissism thing is and it's funny. Yesterday afternoon, I was talking with Brittany about narcissists and how a lot of people don't understand. It's not just a marriage or a partner situation that can affect your life with narcissists. It's anyone that they have any contact with whatsoever. It could be a coworker, it could be a roommate, it could be a boss, it could be sibling, anything. And so about 4 years ago, I changed a lot of things in my life because I was not going to be around for much longer if I didn't. And one of the things I had to do was I identified the people in my life that were like that, and I went away from them, and my life immediately began to get better because the things that those people do to make their lives better do nothing but destroy other people. It doesn't matter what the context is.
100%, 100%. And it almost did destroy me. It almost took me out of here. And I didn't even realize it because, you're not getting hit. You're just getting screamed at and emotionally tormented day in and day out. So you don't see it as abusive. And I was in therapy for a year before I even accepted that it was abuse. I'm like, what are you talking about, lady? You never hit me, but no. It drove me to not want to be here. That's abuse.
Absolutely.
That's abuse. So
gaslighting is abuse.
Exactly. And I will say I've had narcissistic traits in my lifetime. I have. And a lot of it came out in my parenting. A lot of it I regret. It's not something, once I realized what those traits were, I felt remorse. I'm not proud. None of it. It's instant remorse for some of the things my kids went through because I, had to control everything. But my therapist had said, if you have to ask yourself if you're a narcissist, you're not a narcissist.
Yeah.
You just had the traits.
Same thing.
Yeah. So, because I'm like, wait a minute, am I the narcissist? And she's like, no, you had traits of a narcissist because of the way you grew up. But if you're asking yourself, then the answer is no. And so I feel bad about the traits that I had around my children. Growing up, they didn't deserve that. They're exceptional women and they deserve nothing but good to come to them. So, regretful mom, but healing mom and changing the future for them.
And the ability for you to acknowledge, like, I did things that I regret, so there's so many, I mean, a true narcissist would not
doesn't
have the
experience
same
that regret.
no.
It just doesn't
That's
work
true.
that way.
That's
Exactly.
true. That's very true. No, I'm open about the status of me and my kids' relationship now because, with me coming out as a psychic and, being seen more on podcasts and things like that, I am telling the worst part of my truth so that nobody else can tell the worst part of my truth. So if somebody comes out and says, oh, well, she did this as a mom. Well, she says it on every podcast. You know what I mean? That type of thing. I'm delving into the worst of my truth so that I can't be, defaced, debunked, whatever it is.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Right. You're owning your story, the fullness of it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And I see all people as having wounded parts. And so a
Mhm.
narcissist or having narcissistic traits, those are coming from a place of wound. It's coming from a place of how do I protect myself? Because I had a therapist say this to me that narcissists, and she was, I mean, women can be narcissists too, but what she said to me was narcissists are scared little boys,
Mhm.
and so it's like that child part is like, how do I take control of my environment, of people around me, so that I can feel secure in
Mhm.
myself, and so I think that's true of the people that have hurt us. I think that's true of ourselves, of that we all have these wounded parts. But what you're doing is you're looking at those wounded parts and you're figuring out how do I heal so that I am the embodiment of my most authentic and beautiful light.
100%. 100%. Definitely. Um, I, I, I just want my voice to be a voice for others. I just want to be, I know my purpose is greater than one person, but if I save one young lady from questioning or from hating her body for
Hmm.
no reason other
Hmm.
than someone else's mistreatment of it, or hating herself or questioning what's her purpose, then I'm happy.
Yeah.
Um, but it's much bigger than that.
I do think this is how we change the world, doing this kind of work one person at a time, just spreading that
Exactly.
light. It has a ripple effect for sure.
It does. It does. And when you're in that space, the right people find you.
Yes.
So opportunities have literally been laying at my feet this entire time, and all I had to do was say yes to myself.
Yep. Love it.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Just curious, you mentioned briefly that you're kind of getting away from it with your business, but with the tarot thing, is there a specific deck that you feel like is best for you? Do you have like a favorite or like one that works best for you? I always ask people
Oh
this question when
yes.
we bring up tarot. It's interesting to me.
Yes. I have a favorite tarot deck, definitely. It's a little blue one, and then I have my favorite oracle that I use
Oh,
every day
nice.
right next to me on my desk. But yeah, I've got my favorites. I bought a bunch of tarot decks, and I'm sitting here gonna mail them to birthday bestie this week because I'm like, even when I had them, like I played with them and used them once or twice, but I always went back to that
Oracle.
favorite deck. And
And
Oracle is every day.
what's that oracle deck called? I don't think I've seen that one
Goddess
before.
guidance oracles.
I've definitely seen that one before.
Oh,
That's
cool,
awesome.
cool deal.
Yep.
So that one speaks to you pretty well.
Yes. Yes. Every day. Every day. Sometimes it puts me in a corner and makes me want to cry, and sometimes it's uplifting and just what I need to hear. Tarot put me in more corners than Oracle has because tarot cuts.
Do you feel like that was what was draining about doing tarot readings, or what was it that
Um, they just require more energy. Um,
okay.
they 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 require Oracle is guidance.
Hmm.
Tarot is this is your situation now. This is what you need to do. This is how your future is going to look if you don't. So it just pulled a lot of energy from my field. And while I can do it, I just prefer
Yeah.
not to.
Yep.
I'll do them every once in a while, but it takes a lot from me. So then like the next day I'm tired,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Yeah.
If
It
I
just
can
doesn't
plan ahead, I'll do them.
yeah, it just doesn't resonate as much. It's yeah, no.
Yeah, it's I can, like I said, I can do it, I can get through it, but I'm
Yeah.
exhausted afterwards.
Gotcha. In in the work that you're doing and having these mediumship abilities, is there anything that you have found that helps you kind of protect your energy? Like, say you do have to go to the hospital for some reason. Is there something that you do to kind of protect yourself in that?
Always envisioning myself in a bubble of white light. Anytime I leave my house, I say a little ancestors surround me kind of thing. Spirit guides, angels, archangels, include all of them, including our spirit animals. And yes, when I have to go into a hospital, I've got hematite, I've got black onyx, I've got everything grounding that you can get your hands on. It is on some part of my body.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to make sure. Like I had a brand new hematite bracelet break in the hospital
Wow.
when my ex best friend was having surgery. It was brand new. I had just bought it 2 days before and then flew down there, and there was just so much energy around me. It just broke. Um, so yeah, I've always got some form of a crystal or something like that, and I'm always envisioning white light, and I always dispatch my people before me
Yep.
so that if there's any danger, they'll let me know,
Yeah.
or any malevolent spirits.
Mm-hmm. Have you encountered a lot of those in your work or?
Not so much in the last couple of years. I used to a lot as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot. I I I would see things like um do you remember the man? Are you guys old enough to remember the man from Poltergeist
Oh yeah.
with the black
The
hat?
hat. Oh yeah.
Yes,
That dude
yes.
gave me nightmares as a kid for sure.
I would see things like that.
Oh
Like
gosh.
he's the perfect depiction of the things that I used to see. And I remember watching that movie and like freaking out because I'm like, oh my God, I see this man, when I'm
Mm-hmm.
waking up or whatever. But since I've been on the healing end, I don't really encounter too many negative forces. I have when I've been in Walmart one time and I got out of there quickly. Um, it's just a low vibrational place to be anyway.
Yeah.
They don't treat people right. It starts at the top.
Yeah.
But no, my team is pretty good about keeping those not so nice things away from me.
I
Yeah.
was gonna ask if you would attribute the experiencing less of that to the fact that you've got people who are closer to you having been around now.
Um, I attribute it to two things. One, yes, my spirit team that's around, and number two, healing parts of myself that I used to be afraid of. A lot of times those shadow aspects are just parts of ourselves that need to be loved.
Yep.
Gotcha. It's interesting that you when you were younger you saw someone with a hat like that. There actually it's a trend among people who have these types of experiences that they just call him the Hat Man.
Hat Man.
Yep.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of people who have experienced that specific thing. That's really interesting. And then not just within like directly spiritual stuff, it's other parts of like paranormal type things. So it's kind
Hmm.
of have you ever, it's out of curiosity, because a lot of people who see that have this, have you ever had any sleep paralysis issues?
Yes, I have. In the
Me too.
past, I have.
Yeah, those are apparently kind of connected sometimes.
Really?
Hmm.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I haven't seen him in a couple of years and don't want to see him.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
he can stay where he is.
Well, I mean, again, going back to the whole vibration thing, your vibration's different,
True,
so it's more
true.
aligned with angels and your spirit guides and your ancestors, so it would make sense to me that a hat man's gone.
Yeah, we never want to see him again.
Yeah, that's
He can stay where
good.
he is. I don't even like seeing when people clip Poltergeist on TikTok. I'm like,
Hmm.
nope, take him off the screen, please.
Yeah.
I can still remember that stupid song. Mm-mm.
Yeah. How how much do you consciously connect with your guides? Like, do you like know like you talked about having a team. Like, do you know like their names? Do you know what kind of like spiritual beings they are? Like how conscious is this for you?
Very. I know probably 80% of the team that surrounds me. I now know them by name, what they did, what their, gifts were and things like that. The other 20% is my own healing through not wanting my father's lineage around me.
Okay.
So like I've accepted my paternal grandmother, but she's the only one on that side that I've accepted so far. So as I'm healing through, working with her and things like that, um, because I feel like for somebody to be as evil as my father, that the descendants can't be that far off.
Hmm.
Um, so working through that still,
Yeah.
I've healed from what my dad did, but as far as accepting the side of my spirit team that would come from that, we're working on it. So
Yeah.
I accepted grandma. She's okay. She knows your son is not allowed around me. Your husband's not allowed around me, you know. And if you do anything crazy, you won't be allowed around me.
Hmm.
Um, most of my mother's lineage that surrounds me, I know who to talk to for what. Um, I've worked with two deities so far, um, to help get me through some situations. So, yeah. And I know Archangel Michael and Raphael stay around me. I even have a dragon that I don't know how to connect to. I've been trying. And then I found out that my dog, we had a husky when I was born, and my mother said when I came home from the hospital, she would sleep under my crib, and if anybody but my mother came to my crib to get me, she would get nasty, and she wasn't even like a bad dog.
Yeah.
But when I came home, she became protective of me. She's Candy's been with me since she passed. I found that out in, was it my Akashic? It was either my Akashic or my Dark Night of the Soul reading, but I've got quite a bit of beings around me. So I love
You
them, I accept them, and I enjoy them. Like
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
That's awesome.
you mentioned having interacted with a couple of deities. Would that be in reference to the Akashic Records stuff or something else?
No, that would be I had to work with Lilith at one point to give me some courage to cut off my ex-best friend who was literally lying to my face and intentionally causing harm to my body. So Lilith kept calling at that point, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want no parts of this. I don't know you well enough. And finally, I was led to read her actual story, and she's not this horrible deity that everybody claims she is. She's actually just like me. She was abused.
Hmm.
Um, so she helped me get through the courage. I didn't do anything to anyone, but she helped me get the courage that I needed to go ahead and exit that relationship. Um, and then I've learned that Oshun is calling out to me, so I leave her an offering as well. Um, when I need some extra confidence or some extra pretty, I light my yellow candle and leave her a little honey, and it happens. So those are the two that I've worked with so far.
What tradition is Oshun from? I've never heard of her before.
African spirituality, and
It's
I
Yoruba,
had
right?
never heard of, huh?
It's Yoruba, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I
Okay.
had never heard of her before.
Yeah.
And, so when the reader was like, oh, shoot, I'm like, who's that?
Yeah.
But I listened and I said, it makes sense.
Oh,
You know, once I read about her story and things,
yep.
I was like, it makes sense. So since she likes to help me out, we leave a little honey out for her. We light a little yellow candle and she helps with the confidence.
I love that. Oh,
Yeah. So
that's
no, I'm not
awesome.
over here burning, black candles with people's names in them and,
No.
doing the nasty things to others. Any deity that I've worked with, it's been my own personal journey and my own personal healing.
Yep.
Um, None of the rest of that crazy stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the original like story or mythology around Lilith is very different from what you see on a movie or a TV show. Like that,
It
that
Mhm.
it those stories have changed over time.
it's sickening that they teach us that she's this, demon baby
Yeah,
eater.
mother of demons or yeah, that stuff.
And no, it's not the case at all. So when I read her story, I was more inclined to answer the call, especially since I was in complete way over my head spiritually, way over my head, with my ex-best friend. So yeah, she helped me get out of there.
It's interesting that those are also both entities that you in stories you hear that help women in need. Those are kind of that's the purpose of those specific things.
Yes, they are. They are. They definitely are. They're not here to, again, like I said, I just when I leave a relationship, I just want to be left alone. I'm
Yep.
not going to be that person that tries to I just want to leave me alone. That's
Yep.
it. Um, so yeah, when I'm working with them, it's for good things. It's for, things that are going to help me with my purpose and help other people. It is never to harm. I don't believe in harming
Yep.
others. I believe that the number 8 does that. It's
Yeah.
always going to come back. That
I agree
karma's
with that.
always going to hit.
Yeah, I mean, if you believe in that, it's like there is no need to hex people or
No,
anything like that because it's like, no, the universe will take care of that, and that is what that person needs to learn their lessons. Like, I don't need to be the bringer of that. Like, I just
no,
need to focus on my own healing and protecting my energy.
I don't want any parts of it.
Yeah,
You're
me
right. I
neither.
just want to protect my energy. That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
my peace. You had mentioned doing the Dark Night of the Soul reading or healing. Tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about that. I mean, I've heard of Dark Night of the Soul, but I've never heard of it in that context before.
So, an entity had attached itself to me. I felt it. I saw it. Um, Back in December of 2000, what year are we in? 24?
24.
22. So December of 2022, I was at my kid's house. I remember I was asleep and I remember hearing both daughters come up, to their bedrooms respectively. And I'm thinking I'm still awake. Apparently, I had drifted back to sleep. And then all of a sudden, there was this light. The only thing is, this light was coming from a wall. And so that was the last bit of sleep paralysis I had. Um, I'm looking, and this thing is approaching me with this light behind it, but it was familiar. Whatever it was familiar, and I knew it was there to harm me. And I remember it kind of bending down at the side of the bed and touching my leg. And finally, I was like, turn the light on. I was finally able to break out of the paralysis. So I called my first level psychic. I'm like, I'm not feeling right. Something's wrong. This is what happened. And she goes, oh shit, call the next level psychic who works with a shaman. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what do you, she's like, just call now. And so I called my next level psychic, and she had me on Zoom, and she's like, you're in trouble. You are in trouble. And we need to get this cleansed off of you immediately. And so my sister was leaving, that's when I was living with her. So she was leaving to go to the DR. So I scheduled it for then, this energy clearing and dark night of the soul meditation. And it was an entity that was attached to my father and 4 generations behind him.
Oh, wow.
And the way it was explained to me before she bound it and crossed it over was it was going to get brownie points if I took myself out. So kind of like it would have gotten a promotion if I left this world by my own hand. And because I got very depressed all of a sudden, my energy was funky. I'm like, this ain't right. So she bound it and crossed it over. It can't come near me anymore. Shoot, I'm in a whole different space now.
Right.
But that was the last bit of sleep paralysis I had, and that's why we did that hefty energy clearing and dark night of the soul meditation
Gotcha.
to get that thing off of me.
You kind of get the feeling, like the stories you're telling us, do you kind of get the feeling that when it comes to these beings that everything's got a job, maybe?
100%.
It's interesting.
100%. In the natural and the spiritual realm, everything has its, there's light and dark.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference is we're taught to fear the dark, and sometimes we just need to love the dark. And I don't know how else to explain that. We're taught to fear parts of ourselves that are considered dark, whereas once we love that part of ourself that is considered dark, there's no more darkness.
Absolutely. I mean, that is definitely the work that I do again with myself and with my clients is that all parts deserve love and compassion and understanding, right? And they might be showing up in the most horrible ways, right? Substance abuse or hurting people or beating ourselves up, berating
Yep.
ourselves, right? And so, but when you can look beyond what the behavior is and you can see where is that coming from, majority of the time it is coming from a place of I want to protect you, and this is the only way I know how to protect you. And so those parts don't need more anger, they don't need anything like that. What they need is love. They need to be known like you are okay. And when that happens, most of the time they can release that. They don't have to keep that job anymore.
No. Now they're off doing their own thing. Not harming people anymore. But you are 100%. I love your take on it.
Yeah. I mean, love, it helps transmute that energy for sure.
It's the only energy that can transmute all energy is the energy of love, and not the love that we've learned, which is superficial and conditional. It has to be that true white light love to get through to those parts of ourselves that are considered dark. I call it energetic vomiting when my inner child felt unsafe. That's when I'm going to spew out every nasty thing that I could ever think of. Because my inner child didn't feel safe at that point, or taken advantage of, or, used, or whatever. And I had to recognize, hey, that's little Tywanah, that needs this. So I actually sat down one day and acted like she was sitting on my lap and had this real conversation with that version of myself and told her, hey, we're not in a bad space anymore. We want to be here now. We know our purpose. You can simmer down. I've got this now. You can be little Tywanah. Big Tywanah's got it. Because we have to thank those versions of ourselves who fought for us. They're the reasons we survived.
Absolutely. Tell us where people can find you.
blackbutterflygoddess.com
Perfect.
or Black Butterfly Goddess on any social media platform.
Okay. Wonderful.
Awesome. And that we'll link to your stuff in the show notes as well. So if people want to click
Great.
through, they'll be able to find you that way.
Great. And if people want to know, when you go on my website, once you put your email address in, you can then download that 15 traits of a covert narcissist. It's free. It's a free download.
Excellent.
So yeah, as soon as you go on my website, there's a pop-up that asks for your name and email address. And right after that, it takes you to where that can be downloaded immediately. And I'm working on the ebook and matching journal.
Wonderful.
That's great.
Thank you so much for this conversation and just your openness, sharing your story, the light in the dark.
Thank you.
I mean, again, thank you for the work that you're doing because it really does make a difference.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I am very grateful for the opportunity. And I'll make sure you guys get a copy of the book.
Oh, we will buy it to support you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you guys
you.
have a wonderful Sunday.
You too.
Yeah, you as
take
well.
care.
All
See ya.
right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for being here. If you have a strange story you want to share with us, email us at seekerandskeptic@gmail.com. We look forward to talking to you soon.